Welfare check. The call came in at 4:47 in the afternoon, which meant I was going to lose the light before I made it back. That was the first thing I thought about. Not the old man, not the family who'd called it in, not the 40-minute drive on dirt roads to a ranch I'd never been to. I thought about the light. Out here, when you lose the sun, you lose everything else with it. The road, the landmarks, the cell signal, the part of your brain that still believes the world is the size you think it is. West Texas at night is bigger than people understand. I have been a deputy in this county for 9 years, and I still do not turn off a paved road after dark unless I have to. I had to. His name was Walter Kessler. 81 years old, lived alone on 120 acres, about 30 miles north of town. His daughter in Phoenix had called the sheriff's office that afternoon. He hadn't answered the phone in 3 days, and the neighbor who usually checked in on him was out of state visiting grandchildren. Standard welfare check. The kind of call we get a dozen times a year. Most of them end with the old person being fine and a little embarrassed, or with us finding them on the floor, or twice in my career, with us finding them in their bed, having gone exactly the way everyone hopes to go. I'd never met Walter Kessler. That part is important. I want to say that up front, because everything that came after is going to sound like I knew him, like there was history between us, and there wasn't. I had never spoken to him. I had never seen him. His name had never come across my desk in 9 years on the job. He was, until that afternoon, a complete stranger. I left the station at 5. I called dispatch when I turned off the highway onto County Road 1140. I called again when I turned off 1140 onto the unnamed dirt track that led to his place. The track ran north between 2 empty fields, and then through a stand of mesquite, and then up over a low rise, and on the other side of the rise, the land opened up into a shallow basin with a single house at the bottom of it. White clapboard, tin roof, a wraparound porch, a windmill that wasn't turning, a blue Ford pickup parked out front. No other vehicles, no movement. I parked 30 yards from the porch, the way you do, and I sat in the cruiser for a minute, looking at the house. The sun was already low. The shadows were long. There were no birds. I noticed that. I want to be clear that I noticed it then, not in retrospect. There were no birds and no insects, and the wind that had been pushing through the mesquite all afternoon had stopped. The basin was completely silent. I called dispatch one more time. I said the address. I said I was on scene. I said I'd check in within the hour. Then I got out of the cruiser and walked up to the house. I knocked on the front door. I called out his name. Mr. Kessler, Sheriff's Department, welfare check. I waited the standard 30 seconds. I knocked again. Harder. I called louder. Nothing. I did the walk around. The kitchen was on the south side of the house, and the kitchen window was the kind that sat low enough for a person to see through if they stood on the porch boards and looked in at an angle. I went around, I looked. He was sitting at the kitchen table, facing me. He was not moving. I want to describe what I felt in that moment, because it matters for what came after. I did not feel afraid. I felt the specific calm that comes over me on a body call. The calm that is the entire reason I am good at this job. My pulse slowed. My breathing slowed. I noted, automatically, the things I would need to note. He was upright. He was dressed. A flannel shirt, jeans, work boots. His hands were resting on the table in front of him, palms down, fingers spread. There was a coffee cup in front of him, and what looked like an unopened envelope. He was looking directly at the window. Directly at me. His eyes were open. He was not blinking. I have seen a lot of dead people. I know what dead people look like. Walter Kessler did not look dead. He looked like he was waiting. I went back around to the front door. I tried the handle. It was locked. I called his name again. I told him I was coming in. I used my baton on the doorframe near the deadbolt. Old wood, soft from the dry heat, gave on the second hit. The door swung open. I drew my sidearm. I did not raise it. I held it down and to my side, the way I was taught, the way I have done 100 times. I stepped inside. The front room was small and clean and looked exactly like the front room of an 81-year-old man who lived alone. A recliner, a television that was off, a wall of family photographs, mostly of children and grandchildren, a few older ones in black and white, a clock on the mantel that was ticking. I noticed the clock specifically because the silence of the basin had made me notice every sound, and the clock was the only sound in the house. The kitchen was through an open doorway to my left. I called his name again. He did not answer. I went into the kitchen. He was still at the table, in the same position, facing the window I had just been looking through. He did not turn his head when I came in. He did not move at all. I said his name once more, gently, the way you say it when you're about to confirm what you already know. I crossed the kitchen and I reached out and I touched 2 fingers to the side of his neck, the way I have been trained to do, the way I have done before. His skin was warm, his pulse was steady, he was alive. He turned his head, slowly, and he looked at me, not startled, not confused. He looked at me the way a man looks at a clock when the bell rings on time. He looked at me, and he smiled, very slightly, and he said, "You're early." I want to tell you exactly what happened to me in the next 3 seconds, because I have thought about it every day since, and I still do not have the right words. I will try. There was a physical feeling, like the floor of the kitchen had dropped about an inch and then come back up, like the whole house had inhaled, like the basin outside, the one with no birds and no wind, had been holding its breath since I arrived, and at the exact moment Walter Kessler said you're early, it had finally let it out. And then I noticed the chair across from him. I had not seen it when I came in. I want to be clear about that. I had walked into that kitchen, I had crossed the kitchen, I had stood beside Walter Kessler at the table, and I had not seen the chair across from him. It was a wooden chair, plain, the same as the one he was sitting in, pulled out from the table at an angle, as if someone had been sitting in it and stood up, or had not yet sat down. Sitting in the chair was something I am going to do my best to describe to you, and I want you to understand in advance that I am going to fail. I am going to fail because the human language was not built for what I saw, and because my own brain has spent the last 4 months trying to forget the specifics of it, and because every time I try to write them down, they come out wrong. So I will tell you what I can. It was the size of a man. It was wearing what looked like a man's clothes, a dark suit, a white shirt, no tie. Its hands were folded in its lap. It had a face. The face was not wrong in any specific way I can name. 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth, the right number of each. It was looking at me. It had been looking at me, I understood with absolute certainty, since before I came into the house, since before I parked the cruiser, since before I left the station. It had been looking at me for a very long time. Walter Kessler said very softly, without breaking eye contact with me, "Don't run!" I did not run. I want credit for that. I have been trained for situations I cannot reasonably prepare for, and one of the things I have been trained to do is not run, when running is the thing my body is screaming at me to do. I stood very still. I kept my hand on my sidearm. I did not raise it. I did not lower it. I waited. Walter Kessler said, "It came a long way to meet you. It's been waiting since you were a child." The thing in the chair did not move. It did not speak. It looked at me with its almost correct face, and I had the sudden, awful understanding that the face was something it was wearing for my benefit. That, underneath it, or behind it, or instead of it, there was something else, and that the something else had been arranging the face very carefully for a very long time, just for this moment. I said, and my voice came out steadier than I had any right to expect. I said, "What is it?" Walter Kessler shook his head. "I don't know," he said. "I don't think it has a name, not the kind of name we would understand, but I know what it is to you. It's the thing that's been at the edge of your eye since you were small. It's the reason you sleep with the closet door closed. It's the shape you used to see at the foot of your bed when you were 5 years old. And your mother told you it was a dream. I want you to understand something. I had not thought about that shape in 30 years. I had not told anyone about it, ever. Not my mother, not my husband, not the therapist I saw for 6 months after my partner was killed in a traffic stop in 2019. The shape at the foot of the bed was the most private memory I had. I had buried it so deep that I had genuinely forgotten about it until the moment Walter Kessler said the word closet, and the entire memory came back at once, complete and undamaged, the way memories do when something reaches into the back of your mind and pulls them forward. I started crying. I did not know I was crying until I felt it on my face. I did not lower my weapon. I did not move. The thing in the chair tilted its head, very slightly. The tilt was wrong. It moved like it was practicing. Walter Kessler said, "It can't take you. It can't make you do anything. It's not allowed. I don't know who doesn't allow it, but somebody doesn't. It can only ask." I said, "Ask what?" He did not answer right away. He looked at the thing across the table from him. He looked at me. His eyes, and I noticed this, and it has stayed with me. His eyes were very kind. He looked at me the way my grandfather used to look at me when I was small and frightened of something I couldn't name. He said, "It wants to know if you'll come." I said, "Where?" And Walter Kessler smiled, the same small smile from before, and he said, "I don't know that either." I asked. It told me. I forgot. I think you forget on purpose. I think that's how you can stand it. The thing in the chair was still looking at me, patient, composed. It had waited, Walter had said, since I was a child. It could wait another minute. It could wait another hour. It could, I understood, wait as long as it needed to. I said, "Has anyone ever said yes?" Walter Kessler thought about that for a long time. The clock in the front room ticked. The basin outside held its breath again. Finally he said, "I don't know. I don't think the people who say yes come back to tell anyone. I think the people who say no remember it for the rest of their lives and never quite shake the feeling that they should have said yes." Walter. I'm Walter. I'm sorry. I forgot to say. I said no. 41 years ago. I was 39 years old. I had a wife and 2 daughters and a ranch I was paying off. And I said no, and it nodded, and it left, and I have thought about it every single day since. He paused. "It came back today," he said. "Not for me, for you. It just needed somewhere to wait. I let it in. I'm sorry about that. I don't think I had a choice, but I'm sorry anyway." The thing in the chair raised one hand, slowly, and held it palm up, the way a person might offer their hand to a child crossing a street. It did not stand. It did not come closer. It just held its hand out and waited. I do not know how long I stood there. I know the sun went down outside because the kitchen got darker, and Walter Kessler reached over without looking and turned on the small lamp on the table. I know my left leg started to shake at some point, and I locked the knee to stop it. I know I thought about my husband and my mother and the dog I had adopted 3 months earlier, and the case I was supposed to testify on the following Tuesday. I thought about all of these things very quickly and very clearly, and I thought about the shape at the foot of my bed when I was 5, and I understood, in a way I did not understand and have never understood since, that I had been looking at the same thing then that I was looking at now, and that it had been waiting all the years in between, and that the offer it was making me was the offer it had been planning to make me on the night I first saw it, and that everything that had happened in my life since that night had been, in some sense I could not articulate, the wait. I said no. I did not say it out loud. I did not need to. The thing in the chair lowered its hand, and it nodded, the way Walter said it had nodded 41 years ago, and it stood up. It did not walk to the door. It did not walk anywhere. The chair was simply empty, and then the kitchen was empty of it, and the basin outside took a long, slow breath, and somewhere far away a bird called, and then another, and the wind started moving through the mesquite again. Walter Kessler put his hands flat on the table and let them rest there. He looked very tired. He said, I'm going to die tonight, I think. I've felt it coming for a couple of weeks. I think that's why it picked here. It needed a place that was already on its way out. I called for an ambulance. I did not tell them about the thing in the chair. I told them I was on scene with an elderly man in distress. I told them I needed transport. I sat with Walter Kessler at his kitchen table while we waited, and he told me about his daughters, and the wife he had buried in 2009, and the first horse he ever owned, and the ranch he was leaving to a nephew in Lubbock. He was lucid the whole time. He was kind. He thanked me for coming. He died in the ambulance, about 20 minutes from the hospital. The medics said it was a heart attack. They said it looked peaceful. I drove home that night the long way, on paved roads, with every light on the cruiser turned up. I did not turn on the radio. I did not call anyone. I went home and I sat in my kitchen until the sun came up, and my husband found me there at 6 in the morning, and I told him I'd had a hard call, and I went to bed, and I did not sleep. That was 4 months ago. I'm still a deputy. I still take welfare checks. I still drive the back roads, and I still answer the calls, and I still do the job. And I am, by every measurable standard, fine. But I have started leaving the closet door open at night. I do not know why. My husband asked me about it once, and I told him I didn't know, and that was the truth. I want to be able to see it if it comes back. I want to know. I do not want to be surprised again. And sometimes, very late, when I am lying in bed and the house is quiet and I am almost asleep, I think about Walter Kessler's small, kind smile, and I think about the hand the thing held out to me, and I think about the question it asked me without speaking, and I find, and this is the part I cannot tell anyone, and the part I am only telling you now because I do not know who else to tell, I find that I am not entirely sure I gave the right answer. It said it could only ask. It did not say it could only ask once.
This has been a story from the other side of now. If you enjoyed this story, like, comment, and subscribe.